all of your forwarding and freight shipping needs. We at Trin Forwarding International are committed to product delivery. At Trin Forwarding, we have the much needed experience, professionalism, and due diligence in freight forwarding, shipping, and cargoes. We deliver with timeliness and precision. You can reach out to us at our Caribbean office in Trinidad and Tobago, telephone number 868-624-6250, or our Florida USA office at 305-887-9722.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Today we're very fortunate and we're very blessed to have with us in Alhikmat studio the sheriff himself. You know the famous saying, the sheriff is coming to town. Well, the sheriff is here in town and he is in Alhikmat studio. Welcome to the show, Mr. Sheriff.
Hello,
Sir.
Thank you for having me. It's a huge pleasure to be here. It's an exciting time for us in the agency, and having met you in the past and having communications, I think this is going to be a good day here and have a good discussion.
Of course, it's going to be wonderful. So stay tuned. Do stay tuned. We're going to have a wonderful conversation with the sheriff. He has a very interesting background, a great successful personality, a man with a lot of experience, a lot of vision. Hence, he is the sheriff of BSO, Broward County, the sheriff himself.
Alhamdulillah, for free copies of the Holy Quran, contact Alhikmat Caribbean office at 1-868-325-8276. You can also follow us on Alhikmat TV, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. For more information, you can also contact Alhikmat's Florida USA office. You can visit our website at www.alhikmat.com or call us at 1-800-804-0267 or 954-986-0158.
Allah, ya Allah, ya Allah, His throne extends over the heaven.
It's savings and big discounts when you shop at Fens nationwide. Upgrade your home or treat yourself to something special. Enjoy store-wide savings on furniture, appliances, electronics, bedroom, and so much more when you shop at Fens of Marbella, Chaguanas, Pinal, and Piaco. Visit us in-store for more information or call 650-FENS, that's 650-3367. Or check us out on Facebook, Fens of Trinidad and Tobago, serving generations.
So, Mr. Sheriff Gregory Tony, how do you prefer I call you? Sheriff Tony?
Sheriff Tony's fine.
That's what you're famously known by, right?
That's what's running around in the county right
good,
now.
Good. So I know you have a very interesting job, a very strong job, a very stressful job, being the sheriff in town. That can be something very stressful. But let us know before we get into the details of your position and your responsibilities and duties, what motivated you to study criminology, to get into law enforcement, etc.?
Sure. Well, you know, I grew up in the inner cities of North Philadelphia in Pennsylvania during a time in the 1990s where the entire community was just saturated with drugs and violence. And I was part of that. I had survived a home invasion, was involved in a shooting.
Philadelphia, right?
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Involved in a shooting to protect my brother at 14 years of age. I seen several of my friends who were gunned down and killed in front of me. And I said, there has to be more. There can't just be violence and drugs. And so I decided what I was going to do after being a pretty good athlete in high school. I said, I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to explore going to Florida State
So what were you
University.
specialized in? What sport did you love the most?
Oh gosh, I tell you, I played them all. I excelled at baseball, excelled at football, was a pretty good wrestler, and I stayed active. It kept me out of the streets. If I was playing sports, I wasn't in the communities where all the harm and violence was occurring. Right. And going through high school, I was all city in baseball, all city in football. And Florida State University at the time, they had Coach Bobby Bowden, an outstanding man. They were winning all the national championships, and they were doing a pretty good job. And I said, man, I can do that.
Yes.
Let me explore. Let me give this a
no,
shot.
I'm going to butt in here and there because I got to think like the audience,
Sure.
the viewers here. So when you said you're an athlete, I'm like, okay, what were you good at? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So continue.
And so I used the sports as an avenue to get out of the city and to launch my professional career. I arrived at Florida State. I had originally walked onto the team, non-scholarship athlete. Was able to work really hard, performed to a point where the coaching staff said, hey, this young man's very talented. We need to make him a starter. We need to get him on the team. We need to offer him a scholarship and make him part of this program. And lo and behold, I played in the national championship, won the ACC championship.
And that is in Florida.
That's right here in Florida.
So when did you move from Philadelphia to
1998. I left 1998.
1998.
Now the interesting story that adds into this, I left Philadelphia with roughly $500 in my pocket. I had saved up after high school, cleaned up in barbershops, took several miscellaneous jobs, paid for a plane ticket, put my deposit down on an apartment I never seen, and then I just took a leap of faith and left.
That's why it takes a man like you to be a sheriff, or this sheriff, because you can improvise. You just made things happen from $500.
From $500 and a lot of effort, a lot of faith, and a lot of just commitment to finding another way to succeed. For every time there was a failure, for example, there was a time when I was in college and I ran out of money and I couldn't pay my utility bills. I had to go out and buy candles. And when my utilities were shut off, I had to figure out ways to take showers on campus so that I can go to school. But I never gave up. I never found it as an excuse not to continue forward.
But that's an interesting story. Not many Americans can share that story, that you had to go and buy candles when you could not afford to pay the light bill.
Yeah, and there was a lot of hungry days. I can recall spending just enough money to buy, 5 or 6 boxes of pizza to put into the refrigerator to last me for several weeks. But it was all character building things. These all helped me develop to where I'm at now. And after being successful in collegiate sports, I always want to get back to service. When I was younger, I was always the kid that appreciated the law enforcement costume for Halloween. If you look at some of my old photos, I had always been a law enforcement officer. And then, of course, 9/11 happened, and the country was shook. I was a junior in school at the time. I'll never forget where I was at. I was in Latin class. And just like most of the entire world, I was watching this thing happen on TV, and I said, that's it. It's time for me to move on. And shortly after, I went to the coaching staff, explained to them that I would not be playing my senior year. I was turning down a starting position, and I was going to start focusing on joining law enforcement, and here I am today.
So with that kind of upbringing, that kind of sacrifice and efforts that you put in to educate yourself, to be somebody in society, that speaks volumes as to being the sheriff. You will really and truly understand what people need out there, how you can lead as a true leader, and how you can make things happen to all classes, It has
been an absolute huge character building element in my life, and it's also brought forth humility to understand the complications that exist in every facet of this community. We have a lot of struggling people in this community of all different ethnic backgrounds, and they don't have the resources, they may not have the funding. And so when I see young kids on the street that are involved in some type of crime because they're trying to figure out a way to eat, I'm sympathetic to it because I was that young kid. Now, having arrived after Florida State University and starting my career here in Broward County, most people don't realize I started my law enforcement career in Coral Springs, which is just
Okay,
north.
so first you went into the regular police department.
Correct.
Okay.
I went into the
Coral
Coral Springs Police Department, which is in the northwest part of the county. Started my career there, and it was interesting. I ran the gauntlet pretty quick. My first year coming out as a patrolman, I was really successful, had apprehended a lot of suspects, really bad, violent suspects. And it was because I understood the streets. I had grew up on them. And immediately after, I had one of my sergeants come up and recruited me into narcotics. I became an undercover detective, worked a RICO case, or a major racketeering case with the FBI, and really had a chance to see every part of Broward County. And having success with that case, it opened up an opportunity for me. And I became the first black special operations detective in the burglary unit, became the first black SWAT operator in the history of the SWAT team there. And then later I became the first black sergeant and the first supervisor in the history of Coral Springs. And it had just been a matter of just continuing to persevere.
You're a man of history. I think I read somewhere where you had your own private security firm or something. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct. And that was during my time at Coral Springs. One of the things I did when I was at Coral Springs, I started paying attention to all the active shooter events that were occurring all across the country and all across the world, in our mosques, inside of our schools. And I told my administrator, I said, hey, I told my chief, we need to start advancing the training here. we need to prepare because someday we're going to have a catastrophic event,
Yes.
a mass shooting here in Broward County, and it's best for us to be prepared. And fortunately, my chief of police then said, you know what? He said, Sarge, at the time I was still a sergeant, you're correct. Go ahead and do what you need to do. And I went up to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, working with the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
Became a nationally certified active shooter threat instructor, got my tactical medical certification, and I came back and started putting all these training programs into Coral Springs. Well, while I was doing that, I started getting calls from private sector businesses, and companies were curious, can you come in and help us design our response protocols? I have 400 employees. I'm worried about my employees.
Wow.
And that's when it hit. I said, maybe I can do this also outside of the agency. I wrote my own business plan, started my own company, and began to travel across the entire county training individuals. And fortunately, I had success there and decided that I was going to do that full time, and retired early from the police department. And unfortunately, while having success in my company, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting took place in our high school here.
Right.
And I recall looking on TV
And
once
that was
again.
Coral Springs, right?
That was Coral Springs
Yes.
Police that responded first on scene.
Yes.
And performed well. And I remember looking on the screen and seeing the very officers I trained, the very people that I had put through these programs, running into the schools and doing what we trained them to do. And I felt a sense of pride, but I was also disappointed that I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe all of 2 days later, the chief of police calls me. He says, hey, Greg, you know, everything that you warned us about years ago came to fruition. And you were right then. It's time for you to come back and start talking to the community. I think they're going to listen. And so I left my wife. I was in South Carolina at the time. I left my wife of 16 years in South Carolina
Interesting.
for an entire month by herself to come back here and help Broward County. I didn't want anything, wasn't expecting anything.
You just got a love for security,
Yes,
law enforcement,
and
and caring for the
service.
the service of people.
Being able to serve people.
Yes, yes.
And I came back here, interesting enough, I came back here and I was 100% speaking to legislators and state officials about here's what we need to change in terms of policy, here's where the money should probably be spent. And lo and behold, you never know who's watching, you never know who's paying attention to the works that you're doing. I get a call from the governor's office
Yeah.
saying he
'Cause
wouldn't.
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah.
So what was this big connection about with the governor and you directly? I mean, that is very, very interesting.
It was just a matter of doing the right thing and not being concerned about capitalizing on materialistic things or trying to get something for yourself. I had turned down money and contracts that we were working on in South Carolina, but it was important to come here. This is my community. You know, this is Broward County.
I'm sure in your private business, you would have been making more money than the official law enforcement.
There's an old saying: you don't sign up in this profession to be rich. It's about
Excellent.
service. And you know, I got the interview. I got the call on a Monday from the governor's team saying, "Be in Tallahassee on Tuesday. Bring a suit and a tuxedo. You're going to be interviewed after the inauguration." And I was one of 3 candidates. I was the only African American candidate. I was the youngest at the time of my appointment, and I believe this is still true today. I'm the youngest sheriff in the state of Florida.
Wow.
At 41 years of age. I came in at 40. And I was the second person to be interviewed that day. And the 30-minute interview went to 45 minutes, and an hour later, the governor was confident that I was the one that could come down here, fix the deficiencies in terms of active shooter preparedness. And we'll talk about some of the advancements we've done. And on January 11th, I was sworn in as the first black sheriff in the history of this county. We've never had a minority lead this organization.
And that made national news. That was like big in the entire United States of America that Governor DeSantis has appointed Sheriff Gregory Toney. That was all over the place.
Yeah, listen, I had friends of mine in the military and in law enforcement, all parts of the country, who had, you don't talk to all your friends all the time, who were sending me text messages from Colorado and from California saying, "Hey, we're seeing you on TV. Congratulations." So you're right. This thing went across the entire landscape.
Of course.
So here we are. So being sworn in January of 2019. I knew we were going to have to come in and do a lot of different changes and advancements because we were really behind. And the key thing for that, coming into the organization, I didn't want to repeat the mistakes of the past.
So you were not with the sheriff department before?
That is correct.
I was about to ask you that. I mean, were you in the sheriff territory or department of law enforcement and then you went up?
No.
So you just got directly appointed by the governor?
I received the appointment based on the merits and what he thought I would bring in terms of potential into this organization to safeguard this community.
So that in itself is very unique, huh?
It's happened several times in the history of this agency, that's for sure.
Wow. But it's all on the merits of your good work and your achievement.
What's unique is that this is the first time that a black man's been appointed to this position.
So you have created real history. And especially, I want to touch on a little sensitive point, especially now with all these Black Lives Matter situation and what has happened recently with the judge.
George Floyd murder.
Floyd murder. You were in a phenomenal position to make fantastic decisions, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And no one could have predicted that we would have a law enforcement officer in Minneapolis murder a black man and on a international scale, because everyone's seen this event, and how it would impact Broward County, or how the two would cross paths, me being appointed as the first black man, and then we have this major call for police reform related to a black man being murdered. No one anticipated that, and that's nothing that we could have thought of. But I will tell you, coming into the organization, having been a young man in the inner cities that we talked about, I've been that kid slammed against the ground unjustly and had a police officer put their knee on my neck.
So you understood exactly what was happening.
It hurt to see it. I not only understood it, I understood it better than most. I knew what it felt like to gasp for air in hope that someone shows you humility, that hopes that someone recognizes you as a human being and give you an opportunity to be alive. I knew that firsthand. So it was devastating to see. It just took me back to, when I was 16 years of age, leaving practice, and that's when I had my first encounter of being slammed on the ground. But what I also knew was the importance of what I had already instituted into the agency that would make sure that doesn't happen. Coming into the organization, I didn't repeat the mistakes of the past, which is previous sheriffs come in, they bring all their friends from outside the agency, they promote individuals in command staff roles that don't understand the culture, who haven't served 10, 20, 30 years in the organization. Instead, I walked in basically day one by myself. Think about that. The Broward Sheriff's Office, for those who don't know, is comprised of over 5,500 employees. Wow. We have over 1,300 square miles that we are responsible for. I have 700 plus personnel that are fire rescue. I have the Department of Law Enforcement. I have the Department of Detention. We provide security for the airports as well as the ports. So this is, and we operate almost under $1 billion operating budget. This is a massive organization.
It is
definitely. To walk in by yourself takes a great level of faith in yourself, but also understanding what the quality of people is that actually work for this organization. And so I promoted the most diverse command staff in 105 years.
And the couple times that I came there for meetings and religious interfaith programs, etc., I must say I recognized the power of the diversity that you got there.
Yes, it's visible. It's very much visible.
Powerful.
It's very much visible, and we wanted it to be that way. When I looked at the talented folks in the organization, we had minorities of all backgrounds who have been waiting and waiting for an opportunity. I promoted the first female undersheriff. The number 2 in command of this organization is a black female.
Interesting.
We've never had that. And it created some, a lot of people say, hey man, he's really shaking this place up. And I said, I'm not shaking it up. I'm building it up.
Yeah.
I'm making it better. For the first time in our command staff organization, we have Hispanics that are part of colonels and leadership roles. Last year, we had over 400 plus promotions. Half of them been women. These are significant changes. And I must say, there's been a lot of comments when you pay attention to Instagram and Facebook. Yes. They say, hey, who's the major everywhere he goes? My major, my executive officer, the most senior ranking official on the 5th floor with me on the office of the sheriff is Major Munib Ahmed. And his nickname is Benny. He's the first Indian American to be in an administrative.
Well, the first time I saw
executive
him,
role.
I thought he was Hispanic.
That's also
He
confusing.
has a
too.
very diverse look also.
He has a diverse look, but he's very talented.
Yes,
Here's a man
yes.
that speaks 7 languages, has been in this organization for
Wow.
18 years, and we just didn't capitalize on that type of talent and skills. And so having that diverse command staff has resulted in several key things.
So
First,
I think we need to be talking to him one of these good days on our show.
you absolutely have to have the major here one-on-one.
Munib Ahmed, Major Munib Ahmed, his
he's got to-
achievement, his success,
He's
and what
got
he's
to
doing.
tell his story. If you think my story is interesting, you have to hear his.
Wow.
He came here with his family, the successes behind what he did, and he too was an entrepreneur and
Okay.
successful in his own right with businesses. But I'm not going to tell his story. You need to get him back
Right.
on this
So
show.
you will have to give him the time off to be here one day,
He
right?
it's authorized. You got me on recording saying it's official. He'll come back.
Good.
But if you look at where we went from an agency that was suffering from all these active shooter deficiencies, the first thing the major and I did was to travel to D.C. early February of that year, all of less than 30 days. And I said, we need to partner up with the top training organizations in the country. So we built a relationship with the FBI, Homeland Security, brought down all those training initiatives into this organization and expanded our training by 3-fold in terms of personnel and in terms of the type of training we're doing. And we went from being the worst in the country to being now the top certified and credentialed law enforcement organization, public safety organization, because we have fire rescue as well, in the United States. No one has accomplished the type of certification and credentials that we have. And it's
Yes.
been amazing.
No.
It's having good people.
That is fantastic. And I must share with you that a couple of weeks ago, one of your officers in your department with the prisons area, prisoners, etc., they sent and requested 250 Quran, Islamic Quran
That's awesome,
description
yes.
for the prisoners. And I was amazed because sometimes, in many cases, you got to send people to go and request
That's right.
to get these religious material in. So the mere fact that your department, they were calling us for religious material for the prisoners, that's a sign that they're also working on the godly path.
Yes, we've totally changed our cultural awareness here. But Broward County is one of the most diverse counties in every facet, not just in terms of race, but also in religion, also in languages, and so many other different elements that make us unique. We have to be respective of those things. We have to be able to engage with the community to make sure we're not leaving any facet out. Having so much control and being in contact with so many parts of our community, it's important that we don't ostracise anyone.
Yes.
I was surprised, when I had dialogue with members of our Muslim community, how disengaged they were from this organization, not having that type of inclusion. And that's a problem. Because we represent this patch on my sleeve. It says Broward County. It doesn't say Broward County Christians. It doesn't say Broward County Catholics or Muslims. It's the entire county. So we represent everyone, and everyone should feel like they're part of this organization. So we've opened the doors, as you've mentioned.
Yes.
And we've done a lot of exciting things with community outreach programs, committees, and we'll keep moving it forward.
Definitely. And being the first African American sheriff who made history in what, 100 and how many years?
104, 5 years.
105 years. When this situation happened with George Floyd, all right, the mere fact that you were African American in this prominent position as the sheriff, while other sheriffs and other officers would have been a little shaky as to what is going to happen, all these protests, all these problems. I'm sure it was not that bad with you, because you would have already understood the whole situation, know how to handle it with your department.
That's exactly it. I was confident on what our response would be in this county, specifically with the Broward Sheriff's Office, for a couple of things. One, I'll backtrack. Coming into the organization, we didn't have a lot of checks and balance, and we weren't as accountable and transparent to this community when we would do things that were wrong. We had a lot of aggressive officers who were given slaps on the wrist and allowed to continue to be abusive in this community for a long time. And so one of the things I set up early was an early warning tracking system to make sure we knew those officers who did something 2-3 times and that would exhibit signs that, hey, he or she's probably going to hurt, harm, or kill someone. Let's pull them out of the field. Let's train them, or even let's remove them before something bad happens.
Yes, yes.
Then I also created something called a use of force review board, where now we have subject matter experts in our agency that review every single use of force that takes place in our organization. And they make sure, should this be an internal affairs investigation? Is this in compliance? Or should we move to some type of disciplinary action? And that is huge. This agency has never had it. And then another element that's important, our professional standards committee has been around for roughly 30 years. It's not new, I didn't create it. But what I did do was modify it and hit the reset button on it. The professional standards committee is a combination of both civilians and law enforcement officers who are supposed to sit inside of a committee in a room,
Right.
review the internal affairs cases as they are completed, and then make a recommendation to me, the sheriff, as to, Sheriff, we think he should be suspended. We think she should be terminated. We think
Interesting.
she should have a written reprimand. What's very interesting about this is the professional standards committee that my predecessor had set up in place, they just didn't get the message. We had a case where a young man was handcuffed to a bed in a hospital getting treatment. And one of our deputies beat this man while he was handcuffed.
Wow.
And the old professional standards committee said it was okay. They just wanted to suspend him for a few days. I terminated the employee. That's highly unacceptable. Then that same professional standards committee was looking to just suspend the deputies who allowed 17 people to die in this school. They didn't respond. They didn't do their job to protect and serve. I had to terminate those employees. Then we had a case that I'm sure you remember very well involving a 15-year-old black man, a little kid, not a man, he's a kid, he's 15 years old, where one of my deputies ended up slamming his face into the ground and it went international. I had colleagues in London talk to me about this case. All for disorderly conduct. And that same professional standards committee that was set up under my predecessor said, let's exonerate him. Exoneration meaning there's no wrongdoing. That it's 100% appropriate to take a young man's face and slam it into the ground. That was the end of it for me. I removed the entire professional standards committee. We started over. I created a much more diverse group of personnel on that professional standards committee. And I did something unique. I hired a judge, a black judge, to be the chairman over this committee. Who better than a judge to bring fairness and balance to this community?
So long before George Floyd's situation,
So long
you
before
were
George
ahead
Floyd.
of correcting these problems that all these protesters and
That's
law
correct.
enforcement people were requesting recently. You were just ahead of the game.
That's correct. And I think going back to our very early conversation about the way all these things line themselves up together, I'm a God-fearing man, and I don't think there's a mistake there.
Of course.
We
yeah,
were
wonderful.
to be the first black man appointed to this position. No one expected it. To be so progressive about police reform and accountability and transparency 15 months before George Floyd is why this community is not rioting and burning down. When the protesters, when Black Lives Matter movement came out to our facility, I didn't stay inside. I came out and took a knee with them and said, we are ahead of this. This agency is responsible and accountable. We are not going to be abusive. And I won't sit idly by as not only just the sheriff, but as a black man in this country who is now in a position to create real reform and bring real balance and justice. I'm obligated to do these things.
So basically, after you retire as the sheriff of Broad County, you might be having your own private firm again, training other sheriffs in the United States of America, because you have been ahead of the game.
It sounds like another business venture someday.
I see that. I see that. When you retire, you're going to have that
I'll bring
option.
you in as a partner. We'll work
Of course,
on some stuff.
I will do all the promotion. Don't worry. And we will get a cut on the TV station for media promotion and marketing.
All right.
But anyhow, Sheriff, we have been talking for 25 minutes now.
Wow.
Do you realize that?
It's been fun.
So we got to go on a short break.
Sure.
But when we come back, we want to hear your vision.
Excellent.
After this big election comes up, because there is an election coming up, right?
It's right on the doorstep now.
Right on the
August
doorstep.
18th.
And with that kind of success and that kind of achievement you had, I'm sure 100% it's a walkover for you.
Well, we're gonna fight to the end.
In Islam, we say, inshallah, God willing.
God willing.
In the Bible, it says, God willing.
That's right.
Right?
God willing.
I think that's going to be a walkover. You're going to just get it over. So when we come back after the short break,
Okay.
we want to talk to you about what is your vision? What are some of your dreams to accomplish with this new era after August 18th?
Excellent.
Thank you very much for viewing. It's been a pleasure to have with us Sheriff Gregory Tony. Stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to continue on his vision after August 18th and this whole election scenario, which is a very tough one. But looking at his experience and his achievements, we know he's going to walk that over. He's going to walk that over. So stay tuned when we come back. Inshallah, God willing.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah gives hikmat, wisdom, to whomsoever He wills. And whomsoever is given wisdom is certainly given a lot of good. Only the people of understanding will benefit from the reminder. Tune in to Alhikmat TV for khutbahs, lectures, and Islamic reminders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dawah and Interfaith Institute presents for the first time in USA Dawah and Interfaith training with education in world religions from religious professors and spiritual leaders of different faiths. This is a 6-month weekend course designed for brothers and sisters local, national, and international who are seeking to learn the importance of Dawah and better understanding of faith and cultures. For more information, please contact 1-800-804-0267 or 954-986-0158. You can also contact via email at alhikmat@alhikmat.com or visit our website www.alhikmat.com. Alhamdulillah, for free copies of the Holy Quran, contact Alhikmat Caribbean office at 1-868-325-8276. You can also follow us on Alhikmat TV, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. For more information, you can also contact Alhikmat's Florida USA office. You can visit our website at www.alhikmat.com or call us at 1-800-804-0267 or 954-986-0158.
Allahu ya Allahu ya Allahu, His throne extends over the heavens.
In the recent days, we've been hearing a lot about defund the police. You are the sheriff. You need to help us understand that a little bit. In your situation, you really don't need to defund because you need more fun with the kind of activities you have there.
Here's what I've shared with the community. It's not a matter of defunding. It's a matter of reallocating.
Yeah,
This is
I
what
think
we've
that's
done.
what is it.
This is how we're having success. Last year, I reallocated $60 million, 60, towards public safety, making sure we built a state-of-the-art training center, which the agency never had. We made sure we introduced a real-time crime center, which is our technical emergency operations center, where now we track and monitor all our schools in Broward County, over 10,000 plus cameras, making sure we don't have any harm to our students and our young youth. We've also expanded that into our religious institutes. So reallocating money is more effective.
So therefore, this defunding the police, it's not really a right statement.
No, and that's my job to educate the community.
I think that's what, I think you should say that because a lot of people are still caught up in that. It's about reallocating the funds into a more strategic and progressive
and I'll expand more.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we've been doing this year. When we reallocated funding, I said, okay, we have roughly $278 million out of our budget that every year goes into the jail. Meaning we spend $278 million a year to keep people in custody.
Wow.
Right? By the way, almost 70% of that base are black people, the people that are incarcerated. So there's another indiscriminatory practice that exists in these institutes. So I said, let's reallocate money on keeping people out of jail. So we launched the Broward Sheriff's Office Youth Mentoring Program, where now we are identifying young people that are in these impoverished communities that don't have the family members with disposable income, and we're training them on skills that are important to be successful, giving them career development, financial literacy, giving them out involved in civic and community affairs. These are ways to take money out of the traditional policing of let's buy more guns, let's go out and chase down more criminals, let's go arrest more people. Instead, let's use those dollars to keep people out of the system.
So you're in the prevention is better than cure situation.
Absolutely. We can't arrest
preventing
everybody.
crime.
We cannot arrest everybody. That is not the solution. It's never been effective.
Yes.
And it only burdens the community in terms of more financial burdens.
Do you have a system where you have officers that go to the educational institutions, if I want to put it like that, the colleges, the high schools, to motivate people to make to become police officers as a career?
We launched an entire new recruitment.
Because I heard you speak about the youths, but I mean while they are in school.
Yeah, we launched an entire new recruitment division last year. I had to promote a Major Andrew Dunbar. One of our Jamaican brothers, been part of the organization for a long time. I gave him the reins and I said, I want you to recruit everywhere. I want you to tap in to all these different historical black colleges and ethnic backgrounds and groups and bring them into the agency. Show them the benefits.
Yes.
We get pensions, we get great salaries, we get great health care, and attract them. But I also challenged him. I said, I want to create more programs that will expand early opportunities for kids. And one of the things we started was something called the Broward Sheriff's Office Legacy Program.
Okay.
And what that program does is exactly what you're speaking on. Now we have our Police Explorer program, which brings in young kids upwards to the age of about 17. We have our Fire Cadet program that does the same thing.
Right.
What I wanted to see is when these young people complete this program, we don't want them to walk away from the agency to never be seen again.
Right.
Instead, let's put scholarship opportunities available to help pay for them to go through the police academy, to help pay for them to go through the fire department. And that allows them to have a long-standing, i.e., legacy with the organization. We catch them early, we get them involved into the agency, we show them all the benefits, then we put them through the educational things that are essential and certifications, we hire them, and then someday they become administrators here.
And that is a fantastic way to prevent crime.
Absolutely.
And make people more official, more part of the system.
Absolutely.
So I suppose that the hate that was going on after George Floyd's murder, if you want to call it that, that's
exactly
George
what I would
Floyd's
call it.
murder.
Yes.
All the hate that went to police officers and law enforcement officers, I'm sure that you have something in place to educate people who have this hate, that you should not hate police officers. We need to correct this situation. And those who are not upholding the law of law enforcement, like what happened in George Floyd's case, we need to correct that. We need to stop that. But we should not have the mass public hating police officers and law enforcement, because that will create major corruption.
I agree, and I don't think that's the current case that we have right now. There's a lot of media portrayal that the masses of people are against the police. No, what the majority and the mass volume of people are against is unethical,
of course,
brutal police officers, and so are we. And so I encourage those protests. I encourage them to happen, but I also encourage them to do it in a responsible manner. To have your voice heard is the objective, and to influence change. Well, we're in a very unique time in this county where, again, I'll go back to it, I understand the issues because I live them. And so, I create so many different committees. We just started a new social justice task force committee to bring in the community so that they can tell us, hey, we need you to focus on these items. We want you to do more of this to help reduce the conflict with the black and brown community, because we can't do it on our own.
Definitely.
We have to be engaged with the community. And even our neighborhood support teams, which we launched last year, has been very successful. I had this vision. I've also been an adjunct college professor, so I'm accustomed to building curriculums and teaching. And I had this vision behind the neighborhood support teams being in every...
So you're more educating the sheriffs and all the deputies right now because you have that background as a professor.
This is an educational position. It is. There has that nexus to where I'm teaching not only my administrators, but I'm teaching my deputies about different philosophical approaches to policing practices.
And I think that Broward County is very fortunate to have a sheriff like you who has a professor's background in education and teaching, because a lot of people think that a sheriff deputy is all about guns and shooting, but a man of education, a man of a background of teaching and educating people, that is so beneficial.
It has been super helpful. I see things a little differently. I can see them from the field practicality, but I can also see them from the academic side, and I figure out ways to merge those two to where we're operating in a community in a manner that they appreciate. And I was alluding to talk about our neighborhood support teams, what we're doing there. You know, that concept is really community policing. And what we did is to have a sergeant and a deputy in every single one of my districts who is responsible now for engaging in the community in a positive setting with a bracket of our civilian employees to figure out what the issues are. So, for example, our deputies are going out to our houses of worship and figure out what days are you having services? Are there any concerns that you have? Or you need help with traffic? How many people are you having in your service right now? Is there a security concern that you may have? How can we help? And by doing this, going out across our communities, for example, during the COVID-19 crisis, we're about 90 days in.
Right.
Every single one of my neighborhood support team specialists and supervisors were telling me that we need to help the community with food. We need to get more food services going on. Now, that's not a law enforcement responsibility per se.
Yeah.
But it does impact crime. It does impact public safety, right? When you're desperate and can't pay the bills, and your utilities are out, like it was in my house, and you're burning a candle, and you're trying to figure out when the next meal is, some people may get involved in crime and theft and put themselves in harm's way. So what can we do as a community? What can we do as an agency? We partnered up with Feeding South Florida. Feeding South Florida is one of our local 501(c)(3)s, and we set up a multitude of drive-through feeding stations across the entire county. We're the only agency that logistically could have handled this. And we help issue out 16 million pounds of food in 90 days.
Wow.
16.
Something that you don't really have to do and did not have to do under your department, but you saw it as a prevention to crime.
It is a social responsibility for us to uplift our community when we see things that are occurring in a crisis.
I mean, not a jump from the topic. I know we're still on the achievement and the dreams that you have after August 18th, but tell me something. What is really the difference? I hear this from a lot of different officers in different categories, but when you hear it from the sheriff of the town, you hear it from the horse's mouth.
Okay.
What is really the difference with the sheriff and a Sunrise police officer or Coral Springs officer? What are the jurisdiction? What are the limits? What are really the differences here? Because you just mentioned that it fell under your department to do this that others could not and did not have maybe the rights to do.
Right. I think a couple things. So the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer for the entire county. In the way Broward Sheriff's Office is operating right now, roughly half of the county, I'm responsible for providing the public safety and security, either law enforcement or fire rescue.
Okay.
The other half of the county have elected, the municipals, for example, Fort Lauderdale, have elected to choose their own independent police department that operates under the city guidelines.
Okay.
So Sunrise, Miramar, Coconut Creek, Pembroke Pines Plantation, a few others have their own police department. However, they don't have the logistical capabilities that we have as a sheriff office. For example, Coral Springs, the old city in which I used to work at, have roughly 200 officers. When they need support, they contact the Broward Sheriff's Office. We go out and provide the helicopter units, Marine Patrol. We help out with major civic unrest incidents and many other facets. However, as the sheriff, I have jurisdictions that can overcross those cities.
Yeah, that's
At the end of the day, if the Sunrise Police Department cannot fulfill their responsibilities in terms of safety and services, I'm obligated by law, by Florida law, to step in and support or even take over those services.
Interesting. When we were at that meeting, that leadership meeting you had called a couple of weeks ago, sometime in June, I think.
Yes.
You spoke about $1 million budget that you were going to get invested in some. What is that all about?
Yeah, so again, reallocating funding, being creative. There's the Broward Youth Mentoring Program that we started. I originally pulled out $250,000 out of our law enforcement trust fund to launch the project. And I had challenged our county commissioners, showing them, look, I am taking the added step to help keep people out of jail and to uplift our young people. And they were excited to see it. And they said, look, can we make this a particular line item where there's money dedicated towards that program every single year, and that's the $1 million for there.
Okay.
But I also pulled in $1 million for the racial equity and implicit bias training to make sure not only my men are trained in this, but those cities that you talked about, Sunrise, Coral Springs, Coconut Creek. I called all the chiefs of police and I said, I'm going to do this program. This program is essential to reduce conflict with black and brown people in law enforcement. And if there is ever a time where we as law enforcement administrators need to unite on this cause, it was now, because of the George Floyd murder and what the community was demanding. And they said, Sheriff, you're right. We're 100% on board. And I said, I don't even want your money. I'll cover it. And I put up $1 million for it.
So you really got a lot on your plate, Sheriff. You got a lot on your plate, but you're a man that can handle that.
It's going well.
Looking at your experience, you can definitely handle that.
And we have a lot of good people. You know, something that's lost, a lot of the community don't realize this. By promoting all the people I promoted, this is the first time in 105 years that there's over 500 years of institutional knowledge behind the sheriff.
That is phenomenal.
500 years of experts, 500 years of experience.
Phenomenal.
And combined between me bringing in my expertise and my vision and my dream in conjunction with all these talented individuals behind me, we're unstoppable. This is why we're having a success.
Right. Presently, there is a lot of immigrant talk. What about people who came to America? Maybe because of COVID-19, they couldn't travel. They became illegal. These are visitors. Their visa expired. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of illegal immigrants or immigrants who are in the process of getting their documents corrected. I mean, I'm just asking the crazy questions that you hear out there.
Sure.
How does your department work with this case? Do they just lock them up and throw them in jail, as we say?
No.
What do you have in place for that?
Yeah, you know, earlier this year, the president as well as the governor ended up doing this very hard push for ICE, the Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency, to go out and start detaining people, immigrants, and taking them from their kids. And it created an enormous amount of fear for our community. I had received so many phone calls of concerns. People stopped calling the police department who were immigrants, and they were concerned would they be deported, and their kids sick. And I said, that's unfathomable that people would not call us for sake of being afraid that we're not going to come help.
They're scared.
They're
Instead
scared.
of getting help, they get locked
frightened.
up.
And so I made it clear that we are not going to be used as a weapon for the president or for the governor or anyone else in that matter, and that I am the chief law enforcement of this county. We do not operate as operators for ICE. We are not a tool to go out and abuse the authorities that are invested in us, but instead we are here to safeguard this entire community. And I think we need to be very cautious as a country about how we are treating our immigrants here, because we all came here as immigrants at some point.
I mean, the wife of the president is an immigrant.
Every single one of us.
Sometimes I am really amazed because I'm like, this immigrant thing is a very serious question,
Yes.
and we got to understand it, because you got our president, his wife is an immigrant.
That's right.
So sometimes I am totally confused. I really don't think that President Trump is against immigrants. He cannot. It is not possible for him to be against immigrants because his wife is an immigrant.
Well, it's one thing to speculate, and there's another thing when it's verbalized. And
I think it's just politics that he makes those statements. Honestly,
perhaps. But when you're at that level of power, you have to be cautious about what the words you use and the actions you take, because there is a ripple effect that impacts my county, that impacts Broward County.
Yes.
When my community's calling me and they're frightened and they're concerned and they think that they're going to be removed out of this country at the hands of the sheriff, that's a problem. And that messaging is not something that unites us, it divides us. Most people in this country, whether they are U.S. Citizens or if they're immigrants or undocumented immigrants here, are here trying to do the right thing. Most people don't flee countries and pack their bags and travel thousands of miles without water and food unless they are truly trying to escape some other greater harm. Our borders and have been open for years. If you look at the very things that are inscribed on the Liberty Bell, it's about having that open access and being fair and welcoming to the unique cultures that exist in this country. There is no culture that has not had some form of substantial contribution to this country and the benefits that we all absorb.
So basically, what we're saying is that every department need to do what they have to do. You're going to do what you have to do in the best of manner. ICE will do what they have to do. But before we close, we're on another 25 minutes. We have just spoken 25 minutes after the break. So I just got one little question, and then you can close with whatever you want to end with as your little dream and accomplishment in this whole new era happening and after August 18th. And I want to make that known because you are a man of a lot of vision and accomplishment. You mentioned before we came on the show that you got a budget for charitable organizations that do immigration services. I would love our viewers to hear this because this is worldwide.
I want to share this with the viewers. This is very important, and so many of our minority-based community have not been educated on this and not aware that this exists.
Of course, you don't hear that all the time.
Every single year, roughly several $1 million come into a bank of funds. It's called the Law Enforcement Trust Funds. Those proceeds come in through forfeitures from crimes and seizures that we do in the law enforcement profession. Florida state legislation allows for at least 25% of those monies to go back into the communities at the discretion of the sheriff. Into 501(c)(3)s that are helping the community. So the Boys and Girls Club, Hispanic Unity, and many other partners, United Way for Broward County, the Urban League of Broward County, many different groups that we're working for, apply for these funds, and I get a chance with our committee to evaluate their needs, their requests, and then institute out a check that would support their initiative. You talked about the immigration and helping people become citizenship. Hispanic Unity does an excellent job with this particular project.
Interesting.
Just a few months ago, I looked at their request and authorized another $15,000 to help support that initiative. Over this past cycle, and every year it comes around, we've issued out $700,000 across a multitude of 501(c)(3)s.
Wow.
To ensure we uplift the community. 2 weeks ago, with the COVID crisis impacting so many households, and I told you we helped issue out 16 million pounds of food. Well, that's still not enough. I had to look at the law enforcement trust funds, shift $100,000 out, and we paid for another 750,000 meals in this community. What I would like to see is more of our minority-based 501(c)(3)s apply to this trust fund so that we can help the communities that need them the most, which is typically the black and brown communities.
Yes, that is really fantastic. I mean, a lot of people think that the sheriff is only about guns and shooting and stopping violence, but you guys do so many educational community service programs where it's phenomenal, and people don't hear this out there. I don't think the regular media makes that known. They're just concerned about a crime.
No, and that's the thing. You know, education is powerful. This goes back to my position as a professor. Understanding that we have to educate the community on what we are capable of doing, and then when we do that, be very fair about how we distribute funds, how we engage with the community, how we expand resources so that everyone has a fair opportunity to participate on the greatness that this agency can do for their community.
So as I said, Sheriff, we have been speaking for another 25 minutes. You're going to have the last word to say what you have to, but I want to tell you and tell the audience out there, I think you can do a fantastic job by training other sheriff officers throughout the United States of America because of this experience you have, your previous achievements and your success. It is really phenomenal, and you will be an ideal example, an educator to other sheriffs who don't know to handle these situations that you have accomplished.
Well, listen, that's very flattering, and I appreciate it, and I can tell you right now, for the success, and I guess I'll close here, for the enormous amount of success that we've had over the last 18 plus months. It has been a byproduct of ensuring that the leadership people that was deserving was put in place to help guide this vision forward. And you know, over the next few weeks now, we're down to a few weeks, the community here in Broward County has an opportunity, a very great opportunity, to continue to allow this administration at their vote, at their request, to continue to move us forward as a community, not just as an organization, but as a community. We are doing so many different things that has been articulated, demanded, and requested for decades. And we've been able to perform and execute those requests in just 18 months. So why would we go backwards? It doesn't make sense. And we also can't allow for ourselves as a community to take promises to people who were part of the organization, but yet they never brought this type of innovative thought process and leadership to the table.
Definitely.
So it would be a huge honor for me to not only be the first black sheriff appointed in this agency, but there's nothing more honorable than being selected by your own people to lead them. And so that's my goal for this year. I would tell them all, if they want to see more of what we are doing, go to sheriff.org / Sheriff Tony. We have a platform called Sheriff Tony Initiatives that outline every single thing that we've done, because there's so much that we've done in 18 months. This show would last 4 hours.
I know we couldn't
just to talk about.
We couldn't just talk about it in 1 hour.
But I'm honored. It's been a great privilege. Thank you for inviting me on to the show today and being able to speak to the audience. We have to do this again.
Of
and
course.
You have to get the major on here.
Definitely.
So he can tell his story. So thank you all for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you very much, viewers out there, for tuning in to Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. And today it was really a pleasure. As I said in the beginning, the sheriff is coming to town. Well, we had the sheriff in town in Alhikmat studio, Sheriff Gregory Tony. It was indeed a pleasure, and I think it's a blessing, of course, to have had him with us. And I'm sure you benefited a lot. And do send this message out, however you benefited from this conversation that we had with the sheriff. Spread the message worldwide. It will be beneficial to the world from his education and experience. Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum.
Get everything you need at Fenn's Agri Center and Hardware Superstore, located at 243 Southern Main Road, Marabella. We carry a wide selection of hardware and agri products. Visit us in-store or call 650-3367.
Casa Nouveau Investments in Guyana. Sharia Bacchus, CEO of Casa Nouveau Investments. Brokering of sales and rentals, commercial properties, industrial properties, residential properties, and land. Property management, property development, interior design, and real estate investment consultancy. For more information, please call at 954-326-9537 or 592-643-5948. You can also email at shariabacchus3@gmail.com. Dawah and Interfaith Institute presents for the first time in USA Dawah and Interfaith training with education in world religions from religious professors and spiritual leaders of different faiths. This is a 6-month weekend course designed for brothers and sisters local, national, and international who are seeking to learn the importance of dawah and better understanding of faith and cultures. For more information, please contact 1-800-804-0267 or 954-986-0158. You can also contact via email at alhikmat@alhikmat.com or visit our website www.alhikmat.com. Linda M. Kaplan, PA, an immigration law firm. Over 40 years of legal services in immigration and naturalization matters. Contact her at 305-670-7665. Once again, 305-670-7665, or email her at lk@lindakaplan.com or visit her website lindakaplan.com. You can also contact for more details the Alhikmat office at 954-986-0158 or 1-800-804-0267. You can also reach out to them via email at alhikmat@alhikmat.com, the website www.alhikmat.com, and visit the Alhikmat TV www.alhikmattv.com. Alhamdulillah, for free copies of the Holy Quran, contact Alhikmat Caribbean office at 1-868-325-8276. You can also follow us on Alhikmat TV, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. For more information, you can also contact Alhikmat's Florida USA office. You can visit our website at www.alhikmat.com or call us at 1-800-804-0267 or 954-986-0158.
Allah, ya Allah.